It pains me to say, but the Lost Continent at Universal Islands of Adventure is a lost cause. This island is beyond gorgeous, but it's beyond past its prime. This is not a hot take at all, it's just something I want to get off my chest. Trust me, it's hard for me to admit this, but it's time for the Lost Continent to go. Universal has been dragging out its inevitable death long enough. I'm ready to say goodbye. Let's take a look at the lost cause that is the Lost Continent, and realistically evaluate its future through the lens of the past and the present. The Lost Continent was part of Islands of Adventure's opening day lineup back in 1999. This island took inspiration from ancient myths and legends. In other words, it was themed to public domain stories, so the designers had a lot of creative freedom. That was evident in the land itself. The attractions, backstories, and designs were all imaginative. I mean, just look at this wild street show from back when the park opened. Yeah, the Lost Continent was amazing. The Lost Continent was genuinely among the park's more lush islands with 3 incredibly detailed subsections: the Grecian Lost City, the adventurous Sindbad's Bazaar, and the medieval Merlinwood. If the Merlinwood section sounds unfamiliar to you, that's because it closed almost 2 decades ago to make way for the Wizarding World. 2 decades? That doesn't sound right, but it was 2008. It's been a long time. Ever since, the Lost Continent has been an incomplete island, with only 2 of its 3 subsections surviving. Honestly, that wasn't so bad. Even a portion of the Lost Continent was a solid area. However, the island started to fall off once its attractions closed one by one. The Lost Continent originally had 3 major attractions: Dueling Dragons, the 8th Voyage of Sindbad, and Poseidon's Fury. In its heyday, the Lost Continent had a lot to do, having an impressive lineup of a legendary pair of coasters, a stunt show, and a spectacular walkthrough experience. Seriously, that was a respectable lineup, including one of the more beloved defunct coasters in theme park history, and a one-of-a-kind special effects attraction. Sadly, all those attractions are now defunct. Not a single one is operating today. Dueling Dragons, along with the retirement of Merlinwood, was absorbed by the Wizarding World in 2010 and closed entirely in 2017. The 8th Voyage of Sindbad stunt show closed a year later after nearly 2 decades of operation. Most recently, Poseidon's Fury shut down in spring 2023. That means the Lost Continent has 0 operating attractions as of 2025. The final operating Lost Continent attraction closed more than 2 years ago, and that show building has stood completely unused ever since. There are toddlers visiting the park who never got the chance to see Poseidon's Fury, but it's still just standing there. Same with the 8th Voyage of Sindbad Amphitheater. It has been essentially abandoned for the better part of a decade, only being used as an overflow queue for a neighboring Harry Potter attraction and as an occasional rest area. It's a large capacity entertainment venue that's basically being used for nothing. The amphitheater has otherwise been useless as its facade fades in the Florida sun. If you've ever wandered back there, you know it has seen better days. The courtyard is neat to explore for a few minutes, but sheesh, the decorative facade is actually cracking. Not on purpose, but it's not being kept up. Poseidon's Fury and Sindbad, nothing has replaced those attractions. Nothing has been announced. We're all just left waiting while the Lost Continent wastes away for an indefinite amount of time. Arguably, the best part of Poseidon's Fury was its facade. I would say the entire attraction was special, but at least we still get to appreciate its undeniable curb appeal for the time being. Point being, the Lost Continent has no operating attractions with no immediate replacements as of yet. If we're stuck with no replacements for now, why did Universal even close these attractions? I can understand Universal's decision to close the Sindbad show since they may have needed that space logistically once Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure opened up. But I don't understand Universal's decision to close Poseidon's Fury without an immediate replacement. Maybe that show was the victim of budget cuts during the construction of Epic Universe, or maybe the venue was in disrepair after years and years of indoor water effects. How hard could it be to keep that show in operation? Well, probably a lot more difficult than I'm thinking because it closed for a reason, but it's still sad. Whatever the reason may be, it's unfortunate those venues have been essentially abandoned for more than 2 years and counting, with no sign of a retheme or replacement, especially in a theme park that is seriously lacking indoor shows. If you ask me, that's inexcusable on Universal's part, but that's a topic for another day. Let's get back to the abandonment of the Lost Continent. Islands of Adventure is among the busiest parks in the world, yet an entire section has basically been reduced to some shops, occasional streetmosphere, and restaurants. Oh, excuse me. What I meant was the best theme park restaurant in the world, according to Theme Park Insider, as proudly displayed on a banner outside Mythos. How could I forget? There's also Mystic Fountain, which could be considered an attraction, but even still, if the only attraction in an entire area is an interactive talking water feature, then that area needs help. No disrespect to Mystic Fountain. If Islands of Adventure were a larger, not landlocked park, then maybe I wouldn't care as much. Epcot's Wonders of Life Pavilion, for example, is at least off the beaten path. The Lost Continent, however, is the path. As it is now, guests have to walk through this section to get from Seuss Landing to the Wizarding World. The Lost Continent is an important, albeit underused, area in the park. There's some activities still around the Lost Continent, including the Madagascar Dance Party Street Show and the ever-changing All Hallows Eve Boutique, which, by the way, take a look at the back of that building next time you ride Hogwarts Express. A forgotten, fading Shop of Wonders sign is still back there. The hidden condition of that old facade shows how long it's been since the Lost Continent was in its prime. The most excitement in this island recently has been a promo for the How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake. Speaking of, How to Train Your Dragon would have been a perfect replacement for the Lost Continent. Imagine how fitting Berk would have been in Islands of Adventure. Anyway, back to the Lost Continent. These little side attractions are like a defibrillator for an island that is losing its pulse. I won't deny most of the facades, music, and atmosphere are still top-notch. The Lost Continent was and still is an artfully designed area. This island has always fascinated me, sparking my imagination as a kid and still fascinates me for those same reasons, but also for disappointing reasons. The body is still there, but there's no life in its lungs. As grand as this island once was, Universal Orlando could do much better with the space. I'm not saying it's bad, but there's really nothing to do as a guest aside from a few odds and ends. It's been 2 years since this island's final attraction closed, and in my opinion, that's 2 years too many for the land to be sitting there collecting cobwebs. The Lost Continent is no longer the Lost Continent from years ago. That's fine, I can accept that, but can Universal? It's time to put the Lost Continent out of its misery. I'm in favor of replacing the Lost Continent. More than that, I hope it happens. It should have happened yesterday. That may sound harsh, especially since I adore this area so much, but that appreciation is why I want it to improve. I care about this place and hate to see it in this way. I hate how the Sinbad Amphitheater has turned into a side quest. I hate walking by Poseidon's Fury and not being able to get in line. Ultimately, I want nothing more than a thriving Lost Continent with refreshed attractions. I would restore this area if possible. However, we have to be realistic. Universal Orlando clearly hasn't rushed to salvage those attractions. It's time to move on. I'm certain Universal has this area on its radar. It's overdue for some work. Of course, the resort has been tied up with other priorities like, I don't know, constructing Epic Universe, and now the Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket replacement. Universal has its hands tied, so who knows when the Lost Continent will get attention. If it were up to me, the Lost Continent would be next in line. Give this thing an express pass, VIP tour, or whatever it would take to get it to the front of the line as the next construction project. Some fans may say Toon Lagoon is in desperate need of a retheme, but I don't think Universal should even consider that until the Lost Continent is taken care of. You may not like Toon Lagoon or connect with those old characters, but at least that island is a functioning theme park area with well-received operating rides. Sure, as a Toon Lagoon enjoyer, I fully recognize it's not the most relevant area, but it has, rides. The same can't be said about the Lost Continent. So the future is now for the Lost Continent. Let's talk about what's next. First off, should it be refreshed or replaced? In a perfect world, the Lost Continent could be revived with a new generation of attractions that support the theme of myths and legends. The island itself outlasted all its attractions, so the theme is strong enough. It just needs good rides to go along with it. Personally, I think the idea of Poseidon's Fury would work well as a Pirates of the Caribbean style boat ride. The biggest gap to me in the lineup of Universal Orlando is that it doesn't have a slow-moving indoor boat ride. Poseidon's Fury, as much as I loved that show, would make for an amazing family-friendly style boat ride. But that's not happening, so I guess the best we'll get in Orlando is Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld. That's just one small idea of mine, but the Lost Continent has potential as is. Aside from Port of Entry, the Lost Continent is Islands of Adventure's only original area, meaning it's not attached to any intellectual property from pop culture. Over at Epic Universe, a world like Celestial Park proves that original worlds still have potential. Stardust Racers and Constellation Carousel are original attractions as well, so Universal is somewhat willing and completely capable of developing original worlds. Dark Universe is almost like an original world too. It's a modern take on classic stories, almost like a spiritual successor to the Lost Continent. Just from a concept and design perspective, there are broad similarities between Dark Universe and the Lost Continent. So that's a little bit of what present-day Universal Creative is capable of, especially on the topic of addressing the Lost Continent. But maybe it was the case the Lost Continent was never actually as popular as the park's other headlining islands, that being Marvel's Superhero Island, Jurassic Park, and certainly not Hogsmeade. So it might be time to retire the Ancient Myths and Legends theme. If the island were to change, perhaps it could take on a similar theme. Some fans have thrown out the idea of the Lost Continent being reimagined as Christopher Nolan's upcoming adaptation of The Odyssey. In this scenario, the Grecian theming could carry over. I'm sure it could add some blockbuster rides, and then the area would be as relevant as ever. Problem solved. It'll be a Universal Pictures film, so it's not entirely out of the question, but this is just fan speculation by and large. That would at least be one way to preserve the gorgeous Poseidon's Fury facade, even though I think it'd be better just to start fresh and not try to hang on to an old facade, no matter how beautiful. Another idea fans have speculated about has been the Legend of Zelda Nintendo video game series. Universal obviously has a partnership with Nintendo, now having a few Super Nintendo areas in its theme parks across the globe. The Legend of Zelda franchise explores a lot of temples and dungeons, so the current aesthetic of the Lost Continent could translate well to those settings. However, it seems the current rumor mill believes Zelda has been set aside for an Epic Universe expansion, not Islands of Adventure. Some other franchises that have been speculated as a Lost Continent replacement have been Wicked or One Piece. Who knows what Universal is cooking up, whether it's The Odyssey, Zelda, Wicked, One Piece, Dungeons & Dragons, or some mystery IP, I don't care, I just want to move on. Tear off the band-aid. I can't take the anticipation anymore. It's like watching a Hall of Fame athlete hobble around in the twilight of their career when they're clearly past their prime. I want the Lost Continent to go out with dignity. I want Islands of Adventure to be at its best. But you tell me, what do you think about the Lost Continent nowadays? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe here for more videos like this. Thank you, and until next time, stay amused.